What is going on, FA Nation? My name is Justin Fensterman, along with James Grande, and it's time to talk some DFS NBA, getting you ready for the Thursday night slate. Jimmy Grande, how are you, my friend?
Good, man. 6 games is the wheelhouse, Fancy. I enjoy 6 to 7 games of NBA action. As soon as we start getting into 10, there's a lot of variance, and especially this year, things have been wild, right? Injuries, COVID, you name it. People being limited, people should be limited, aren't limited. Like 6 games, I feel like everything's been way more in control this year, so I'm fired up. I'm ready for this slate.
Yeah, we are Ray Q, and on the playbook, the DFS NBA playbook on fantasyalarm.com is live, and it will be edited as we get more injury news. But with what's going on right now, some days, as you've seen, it's been a waterfall of injury news. Other days, it's been a bit light. But for right now, here's what we're looking at. Players who are out: Mike Conley's resting. Michael Carter-Williams is out. Darius Bazley's out. Cole Anthony is out. Derrick Rose also out. Same with Alfred Payton and Emmanuel Quickley, all from the Knicks, along with Mitchell Robinson. DeAndre Hunter is out. James Ennis is out. And then some of the questionable tag players. Clint Capella dealing with some heel soreness. He's questionable. Terrence Ross is questionable with a knee injury. Aaron Gordon with an ankle injury. He's questionable. Evan Fournier, more Magic, shocker, questionable with the groin injury. Lou Dort is questionable with a toe injury. Maladon from the Thunder as well, with questionable with a thumb injury. And Raul Neto is questionable with injured ribs. Grande, did I miss anybody? Because it seems a little lighter than normal days. Maybe it's because of the slate size.
Oh, definitely lighter. I think it does have something to do with the slate size, but I also don't think we don't have like a Toronto Raptors on our slate tonight, right, Fancy? Where we've been dealing with COVID for it seems like 2 months now.
Well, dude, I think they're past it. I saw a report actually that came out that OG Anunoby is not on any kind of designated injury report. So I think they're finally good to go. But
it's good to hear.
As we always say in all our content, when there's an update, we will keep you afloat of any situation. By the way, the Wizards lineup: Westbrook, Beal, Matthews, Hachimura, and James Grande's favorite player, Alex Len, will be starting tonight.
Yes, thank you for letting everyone know the secret that I love Alex Len. I appreciate that, Vince.
Yes, sir. But for now, let's talk about point guard here. Let's start because, like Alex Len, let's talk about his teammate a bit. Russell Westbrook, one of the highest priced point guards there, along with Damian Lillard. We're looking at Ray Q's playbook here. When you're looking at the point guard position, James, are you thinking about paying up, or are we going value? Because we were talking about the value tier a lot just a couple of days ago for guards.
Yeah, so, I mean, Dame is probably the top play, arguably the top spend up of the slate. I like when CJ McCollum is there because it takes a lot of pressure off Dame. He doesn't face as many doubles, and because you have to check McCollum, who's a 20-plus point scorer a game. So obviously we saw what could happen. We just saw this matchup, Fancy. And it's funny, Sean Mitchell and I did last night's or today's podcast, and Dame went for 75 fantasy points against the Pelicans, Fancy, the other day. That was worse than the game he had against them earlier in the year because he went for 80 fantasy points in that one. So the proof is, kind of in the pudding here. Dame averaging 77 fantasy points against his Pelicans defense. They don't play any, by the way. So Dame, I think, is my top spend. Westbrook is definitely contrarian. I mean, he's in tip-top form. It's good to see Westbrook healthy because we weren't getting this version of him earlier in the year. So if you want to be contrarian, you go Westbrook, and you pair him with Point Donnie or with a few Utah guys, because if this game pops off, I mean, you're getting low ownership on Russell Westbrook. So I like the top tier. I do like the mid tier, and I do like this. I think point guard is a very deep position from top to bottom.
Yes, and just remember, whenever you're facing the Washington Wizards, it's always a pace-up spot.
Yep.
That's the beauty of facing the Wizards.
It's a good point. It's a good point. It's a great point, actually.
Always a pace-up spot, man. That's great. When it comes to Damian Lillard, question for you. The investment percentage on him, on DraftKings, a little bit low, no? Under 7% for a guy that's in such a great matchup. Whereas if you look on FanDuel, 21.5% is the projected percentage. That seems a little weird, no?
It is. But I get it because we're looking for 5x, right? And we're looking for a floor of 5x. That's 55 fantasy points. He's done that 3 times in his last 10 games. But we know the matchup. We know what he's done in this matchup. We know the over-under's a smidge under 240. So I get both sides. But if he's going to be that low, and let's take advantage of it because, we have the potential. We've seen it twice. That Dame could go for 70 here. So I get it, why people are kind of scared away. I don't think we're used to seeing Lillard at $11,000. But if he's going to put up another 75 and you don't have him, you're not going to win on a 6-game slate.
Let's talk about the value tier when it comes to point guards here, because who are you looking at if you don't want to spend top dollar on Dame dollar? Who are you going to be spending on when it comes to the value sector of the point guard?
Chris Paul looks to be pretty popular, and I can't say I blame anyone going up against Minnesota. Paul, 43 fantasy points in 32 minutes against them. I am weary that this game stays competitive. Phoenix blows everyone out, Fancy. And I was talking about this yesterday. I don't know if a team in the NBA is in more blowout victories than Phoenix, especially this year. Like they are really nasty on both sides of the ball. And it doesn't help that Minnesota plays no defense. So if this game stays competitive, Chris Paul is elite. I don't know if it does. This year is crazy, right? Minnesota could put up a good fight. But so Chris Paul's fine. I think Lonzo is an elite play. Do I expect 17 assists again? No. But Portland's defense is as bad as New Orleans on the flip side of this matchup. And I expect some regret or some positive regression offensively in terms of scoring. He only scored 11. He averages 14. So maybe we don't get as many assists, but I think the scoring comes along. I do think there's 40-point upside. So I like both of those guys in the mid-tier. And then I think there's a few interesting, like, deep dive value options. Jalen Noel in tournaments, I think, clear cut. If this game blows out, he is firmly in play. Even if he doesn't, I mean, Jordan McLaughlin's out, so we will get Jalen Noel as the backup point guard regardless. Ricky Rubio coming off a couple good games in a row, but they're not going to play him in a blowout, and they're not going to extend Rubio to 35 minutes, even though it is a revenge narrative. But Noel plays backup minutes, and he'll play blowout run. And then on the flip side of this game, Fancy Cameron Payne, I think, is a little intriguing. And I'll even throw Frankie Smokes out there, min salary play, probably starts considering Rose, Payton, and Quickly are all out. But back to Cam Payne, I mean, I said it, and maybe this is the dad in me and the dad joke, but I'm campaigning for Cam Payne.
Ah, I see what you did there. I see it.
In the last 4 games, 3 he's top 20 minutes. And in those games that he's top 20 minutes, we're getting 22 plus fantasy points, including a 48 fantasy point game. And, another guy that if you expect this to blow out, he is going to get a lot of run. And he's been efficient scoring. He is the clear, kind of best scorer. I mean, him and Sarge can really fill it up off this bench.
And he's quick, too. That's something else I've liked about Cam Payne throughout his career when he's been healthy, and that's been few and far between. But He's a quick guard, too, and he can definitely turn up that pace a little bit. But no, I mean, I'm looking at his stats right now, and again, no Malik Beasley, still no D'Angelo Russell. By the way, his timetable to return just got pushed back. That's not a good sign right there. So you now have Noah at 5,200. And he has been playing a lot of minutes lately, mid-20s, late 20s, a lot of 28-minute games. And until at least Beasley comes back, this is what we're going to be seeing from him. And I feel like we got to take advantage of that value, Grande.
Yeah, he's a good scorer, man. So if he gets going offensively, I mean, he could keep them in this game, or if it's a blowout, he can just torch the Suns' second unit in the fourth quarter. So I do like Jalen Noel, and he's under 5K over on FanDuel.
Yep, 5,200 on DraftKings. Let's move on to the shooting guards here, because going back to that Washington-Utah game, you have Bradley Beal. That's top dollar. Where do you stand on CJ McCollum at this point, who is in Ray Kuhn's playbook? I'm not there yet, bro. I'm not there with him yet. I'm just not. You're going to go after him over Donovan Mitchell? How do I do that on FanDuel? I can't justify that.
Yeah, I mean, Fancy, you, myself, John, Sean are all aboard the Point Donnie train, right? And that's been consistent for the last couple of years. He has been tremendous as the team's point guard, especially from a fantasy standpoint. And honestly, I think they're just like they don't necessarily need to bring in a point guard. Like after the Mike Conley era is over, like Donovan Mitchell could just be their point guard, and that is fine. I'm not playing McCollum over Mitchell. Mitchell is cheaper on FanDuel. Holy cow!
Weird, right?
I mean, I'm even willing to spend the 1,300 extra to get to Mitchell on DraftKings. I mean, if that game stays competitive in Washington, Utah has the highest implied point total at 124, the third highest scoring team in the NBA this year, which is not something that you'd expect, but it's true. I mean, they're the creme de la creme right now. So I really realistically lean Mitchell in every facet of this slate. And I don't necessarily have too much love for McCollum. I guess there are a few things like he played 26 minutes after 2 months off. That's positive, right? 26 minutes is a lot for a guy who missed 2 months with an injury to his leg or to his foot. And, usually you think like endurance issues. Well, it didn't seem like there was any. And I know the matchup is great. Those are obviously two things working in McCollum's favor, but I don't see how you play him in above Mitchell in honestly any capacity here.
No, neither do I. So we're on the same page in that regard. We were talking about taking advantage in Minnesota. I mean, Anthony Edwards, he continues to look good. 7,100 on both sites. You in on him, or because we just mentioned Noel, who's about 2,000 cheaper, do we go and pivot towards him, or are you still cool with Edwards?
I mean, I don't think because we're in on Noel, you can't play Edwards as well. I just like attacking Phoenix this year has been it's a tough sell for me.
He's got Mikal Bridges, right? That's who you think.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that they would put Bridges on Anthony Edwards, and Bridges guards a lot of really good players, so I don't think he's going to see
one of the best perimeter defenders over the last few years in the league.
I agree, and that's why he got paid. So I think Edwards is fine for tournaments. I think Minnesota in general, like if we are going to talk any more Minnesota, like just without looking down Ray's playbook, I think they are tournament plays because it is a 10.5 point spread. Last time I looked, let's make sure that hasn't updated. It's been 10.5 all day. It's a great game total, 231.5. But if it's 10.5 in Phoenix with the propensity that Phoenix blows teams out, it scares me. And do I think Edwards could play in a blowout? Yeah. Played 37 minutes against New Orleans, so I guess he's kind of blowout proof. But Phoenix has a nasty defense. Tournaments are fine. Other than that, though, I'm okay going elsewhere.
You were talking about Frank Ntilikina before, but where I'm looking more is where Ray is, and that's with Burks and Bullock in his playbook.
Yep.
I feel a little bit more comfort surrounding those guys with 3 Knicks guards out for GPPs. Is there a preference you have between Bullock and Burks?
I mean, so I think we should assume that Alec Burks plays a lot of point guard down the stretch of this game, right? They kind of did it the other night with, quickly dealing with that ankle injury. I mean, Burks plays 36 minutes. Kind of the point guard, kind of Randle, like de facto point guard. I lean Burks. I mean, Burks is the better player. Bullock is the better value. So,
and he'll get the shots too, and he'll get the playing time. So I think both are safe for tournaments. You mentioned Frankie Smokes, and that just gives me a little bit of a weird vibe, man.
I mean, yeah, of course. It's not like you have to take a Tums. Once you set your lineup, you have to take a Tums Because
I don't want that smoke there, Grande.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, there's smoke we want. This isn't. I don't know if this is the smoke we want, but
that's called a dad in training joke right there for you, Grande. See,
yeah,
dad jokes. I've got the dad in training jokes. But
okay.
See, that's why we make a good team. Any other value shooting guards before we move on to the wings?
Yeah, I think Nickeil Alexander-Walker is a really strong value tonight, and JJ Redick being out has been exactly what NAW has needed. And you mentioned it before we hopped on Eric. Bledsoe's minutes down in the mid to low 20s as well. So NAW seeing 20 plus minutes in 3 of his last 4. The only time he didn't was he left a game against the Clippers due to an injury. So we know NAW is a very high usage player. When he's on the floor, he is there to score. He is there to shoot the basketball. And he can provide, he's a good rebounder. He's a decent passer. So I think NAW and the Knicks guys, I think those are probably where we should be looking in this value tier at shooting guard, personally.
Yeah, definitely the opportunity is going to present itself. Let's move on to the small forwards and talk about some of the high price guys, because I feel like once again, we're going to be going back to that value tier for the most part. I mean, you have LeBron on the slate, Brandon Ingram as well. What do you think of Ingram's matchup, who is 2K plus cheaper than LeBron on both sites?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's great. He looked pretty good in this Portland game. I mean, 10 for 22. We get the 30 actual. The problem with Ingram is he hasn't been putting it all together. Like the game prior, we get 4 rebounds, 5 assists. We get to 23 points. The game.
Dude, I have these same issues at times with Jeremy Grant when he's on the slate.
Yep.
I always pick Jeremy Grant the night he scores 20 and grabs 2 boards, and it annoys the hell out of me.
Yeah, and, then we finally get 30, and it's like 6 rebounds, 2 assists for a guy averaging 5 assists per game. So, it's a good matchup. I think Ingram's safe. Look, it's a 240 total, 239 total. It's very hard to not like a lot of pieces from this game. I think I prefer Zion still. Like if I'm spending up for New Orleans, I prefer Zion, but a discount off Zion for sure. And obviously discount off LeBron. I will say though, we've attacked Charlotte ad nauseum against small forwards. Not that LeBron like technically plays small forward, but he will be guarded by Hayward at times and probably most of the time. And he's coming off back-to-back triple doubles. LaMelo Ball talking a little trash about like not being excited to play against LeBron. I'm sure LeBron, who is very like easily motivated by like snarky comments like that, probably takes that to heart. So I do think LeBron is a very viable option. If he's not number 1 in terms of like priorities tonight, he's 2 or 3 up there with Lillard and Julius Randle, who we'll get to in a minute. So I love LeBron. I think Ingram's very safe. Because the rest of the position, I mean, is okay. Like RJ Barrett and Danilo Gallinari, I think are very strong mid-tier plays. I think RJ Barrett is pretty popular tonight, considering the Knicks are down a lot of offensive weapons in Quickly and Rose specifically. And, Barrett is easily in the best stretch of his season, probably of his career.
He's been excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, he has. This is probably honestly the best stretch of his career. I won't even just say season. I think Gallinari is definitely the best stretch of his season, and could even, the love for Gallo tonight could grow to unimaginable lengths if Clint Capella is ruled out, especially just at 6-1 against his former team. So I like those guys. Fency, I do want to quickly circle back. I am mad at myself for not throwing Jordan Clarkson's name out there tonight. Jordan Clarkson is a must play for me on FanDuel at 5,200. Must play. I mean that sincerely. Like 5,200 for Jordan Clarkson. Anytime Conley's out, you plug Jordan 100%. Clarkson. I think he might be, if he's not the most popular play on FanDuel, he is like second or possibly third. And even at 61 against Washington on DraftKings, I have interest there. But yeah, I don't know about you, but like I'll just turn this on you. Like, What do you
Sure.
think of like Rui? Hachimaru's been really good. Like, any
So
love for him against Utah? Because I don't know.
yes,
You
yes.
do?
There
Okay.
are certain teams like the Phoenix Suns, like Utah, that I've been able to sneak one by when it comes to the 4 versus 4 matchup, meaning the power forwards. And I feel like with Milwaukee, I feel like I've been able to help out with center in that regard. But when it comes to Utah, I've had a little bit of success attacking them via the small and power forwards. So if we're attacking Bogdanovich with Rui, I'm totally fine with that, and he's cheap enough, and we need some value here. But does he overly excite me? Is he going to break the slate? No. But if we're looking for that 5-6x return, I think that this is a decent matchup for him.
Yeah, I definitely worry that we see Royce O'Neal defense here and not Bojan,
Right.
because Royce O'Neal is nasty. Royce O'Neal is nasty too. He's one of those dudes that I don't love to attack. But another small forward I'd be interested in is Joe Ingles at 5,200 on DraftKings, and he has been excellent anytime Mike Conley's sat. Joe Ingles has been starting. He will be the starting shooting guard in all likelihood tonight. And we've
Even
seen
if the
him.
game blows out, he should still be in.
Yeah, and we'll likely see most Jazz players play 30 minutes tonight, whether it's a blowout or not. And that's fine, because if it's 30 minutes and it's a blowout, we know Utah's put up like 103 quarters, and we're probably going to have some pretty good nights. So hopefully Washington can keep it close. Maybe that does put you on a Westbrook or Beal a little bit more, but I do think Ingles is probably one of my favorite of this like upper value, lower mid tier at small forward.
Let's move on to a power forward that you've mentioned a few times thus far this stream, James. And I assume because you keep mentioning him, you like him. And it's been everything but magical in the city of Orlando. And that's weird because, if anything, you would think that they would have the magic.
Yeah.
They don't, because they continue to get hurt. This team is a total outside of Nikola Vucevic. So you've got half the team questionable. And on the other side, you've got Julius Randle. So when it comes to Julius Randle being sub 10K on FanDuel, projected investment percentage almost 45. What are your expectations for Randle?
Well, I want to talk about Julius Randle, but I think that there's news that we must address first, Fancy, and that's Clint Capella will play.
Wow. I
So
was wrong about that.
Clint Capella in the lineup. Anyone
So
that had
Nari?
So I like Gallinari because he's been so good off the bench, and Capella's been in most of those games. Am I as bullish? No, but sometimes I dip into the Sean Mitchell school of GPP fancy, and I think this is one of those instances where Gallinari would be very popular if Clint Capella sits, right? But we have to remember, like, this is their sixth man. He's playing 28 to 30 minutes regardless off the bench, even when Capella's been active. And he scored 20 or more in 4 or 5, and Capella's played in more than half of those games. So this is when I really love how we brought Sean on, because Sean plays strictly GPPs. And, I used to generally play both and look, I think, a little more safe. But everyone's going to pivot off Gallinari right now because Capella is back. Oh, he's not going to start. But the matchup is still the matchup. It's still a great matchup against OKC, still playing 30 minutes, and he's still scoring a whole bunch. So I think this could be a contrarian play that we're going to get under 10%. So no, I'm not scared off Gallinari.
What about John Collins in the mid 7Ks? You like him?
See, that scares me a little bit. A little more, because Gallo is only 6'1", Collins is 7'2". I think it's a good matchup. Collins went for 37 against this in the same matchup earlier in the year. So I can get behind it. It's not as much of a priority. Like, I think if he would have been a core play for me if Capella sat. It's like I would go find I prefer Randle. I prefer Zion. I probably prefer Covington now than Collins. And that's big savings there. So, an interesting note from our producer today, our everything here, John and Pemba, 29 minutes each of the last two times Clint Capella has played for Danilo Gallinari, 25 and 32 fantasy points in those games. So, not really a production drop off that much, averaging 28. So, I would still go to Gallinari in a tournament. Collins tournaments only for me now. I don't know, man. It's a little scary, especially with
on John Collins probably 80% of the time I've played him.
He is very tough to get right.
Yeah, it's very annoying because I thought that he would be a mainstay in a lot of my DFS lineups, especially early on, but not the case. You mentioned Covington before, 6-1 on DraftKings, 6,000 on FanDuel. So this is someone that you would deem a safe play at the position tonight.
Yeah, and it circles back, this is one of those games you circle on the calendar, right? You want to get as much exposure to. It's 239 total. Play Bob Cove. I mean, he has all the defensive metrics in the world. He's very good at accruing those stats, and if his shot's falling, he can give you 40 fantasy points. So I'm definitely in on Bob Cove. And I honestly don't love the position underneath of him, Fancy. I truly don't.
Neither do I. So let's move on then to the final position to preview the center spot, because if there's one thing that we do know is that when the Knicks are on the slate, you look at the opposing center and, oh, look who's sitting versus them tonight with it's almost like he's the sole survivor because he's the only one
who
doesn't get hurt, Nikola Vucevic. He's 10K on both sites, 10-1 actually on DraftKings. And to me, this is almost a no-brainer. I mean, this guy's going for 50-plus tonight. I don't see a way that he doesn't. He could play 28 minutes, and I feel like he'll still put up extreme production.
First off, you better knock on wood right now because
I'm not superstitious. I will not.
Okay, I'll do it for you because I am. And I'm not letting Nikola Vucevic get injured on my watch tonight. Yeah, I mean, this is 50-plus. Now, here's the thing about playing Vooch, right? And it's just, I think it's the same thing with playing Julius Randle. This game has and it's a 6-game slate, so like you can take shots on game totals that are 206, but Fensty, it's 206 for a reason, right? There is not going to be a lot of points scored in this game, and I think they can both dominate. Like, we don't know who's going to be in, who's going to be out for the Magic. They all practiced the last couple of days, and we're expecting them to be healthy. Like, we expect Fournier to be there. Gordon's, I think, still a little more questionable than Fournier is. I think Terrence Ross plays, but we don't know officially, and we don't know if they're limited. Who knows? But 206 is scary, man. And 10K, like, we have to get 50, which they've done consistently to get 5x. But like Dame just went for 75 in this same matchup, and LeBron's coming off back-to-back triple doubles. I think I prefer Randle in this matchup to Vooch, but you will get Vooch at very low ownership. I don't think anyone's going to play him. Generally, nobody does when he's priced this way. So if you are trying to gain leverage on the field in tournaments, Vucevic is. And Fancy on cue. Aaron Gordon will start. Evan Fournier will start. Right on.
Wow. There we go. Look at that. They must be tuning into the stream here. Let's talk about other centers then. If you don't want to go Vooch and you want to still spend up, I mean, do you like a Towns or even a Rudy Gobert, Mr. Pandemic himself?
That joke won't get old. Towns tournaments for me. Like I mentioned it earlier. I've mentioned every time we've brought up someone from Minnesota, Phoenix. I think their tournament plays pretty exclusively. If you want to go there, fine. I just haven't loved the production from Towns. I've been pretty adamant about that. I've been pretty vocal about that too. And anytime he's been brought up on a stream or in conversation, I would rather play Gobert. Washington is very exploitable at center, man. I mean, we all know that. It's not a secret. So I'd rather save and go to Gobert. I think that center is easily the worst position on the board. But, Fensty, we have a rule. And he didn't make the playbook, but we have a rule. When Clint Capella is under 8K, he only missed one game.
Right.
Or two. So
we've said this, man. And now, look, people might be paranoid that he was questionable, but he's deemed in. We don't see a minutes restriction. So we have to stick by what we know. And if we get him at lower investment percentage because of that, okay, good for us. Let's celebrate.
I mean, he went for 21 rebounds in this matchup earlier in the year, and that's no coincidence. OKC's 22nd in rebounding. So I think I'm not going to be like crazy and say 20 rebounds, but I think that he could, get close. I mean, he's done it a handful of times just recently. I mean, he had 2 back-to-back 19 and 17 rebound games. So I think Clint Capella is really sneaky here at a position that I hate. I mean, who stands out to you? Because I think that 2 people, and I think Ayton's fine. I think Cantor's okay. Horford scares me because he's in and out of the lineup, and Moses Brown has been the poop without dropping the bee's knees. But like, I think who stands out the most to me is Montrezl Harrell. I think if a center on this slate stands out to me, I don't know if you agree. I don't know if you have someone else in mind, but it's Charlotte.
We're going by normally when I don't see someone that stands out immediately that I want to put in. Let's say if I'm making the starting 5 videos, then I start looking at matchups. And yes, Ayton's sitting there, but like you said, you're fine with Ayton. We should be more than fine with Ayton, but I can't be more than fine with Ayton. I can't. I should be. Towns is the worst defensive center in the league, and I should be more fine. But the fact that I'm not, I'm moving away. So you're right. Who do I go to next? Oh, let's go to something that is a gift that keeps on giving, attacking Charlotte's front court. And that's how you do it.
Yep. I agree. I think Harrell is the premier center. I think his ownership will reflect it as well. So, as much as I like these other guys or think they're, solid tournament plays, you could punt with Alex Len, Fency's favorite player, has his jersey on underneath his collared shirt right now.
You don't see what's underneath this collared shirt, my man. It'll break your screen and your frame on your glasses. I'll tell you that much. Please save everybody. Save everybody the humiliation. You'll all your heads when you see what's under this shirt. By the way, seeing a piece of injury news that Terrence Ross, he's going to try to give it a go.
Oh no.
Try.
If at first you don't succeed, Fensty, dust yourself off.
Try again.
That's right. He's James Grande at the _real_Grande on Twitter. I'm at Fensty Sports. Get those lineups set. Get in the chat. We're going to continue updating the playbook as the news comes out. Let's always dominate. Why is that? There isn't any other option.